Right, let's do a bit of shopping. Oh yeah, baby. 6 bags of plastering wicks with me little discount thing, 53 quid. Now if I go to my local builders merchants, which I'd much rather do because it's on the doorstep, even with my so-called account, cash account, I think they charge me £12.50 for a bag of plaster. So them same 6 bags of plaster would cost about 75 quid in my builders merchant. That's crazy. That's £22 difference on 6 bags of plaster. I mean, how do they expect us sort of sole traders to keep using them places? I know firms obviously get massive discounts, but you'd think they'd want to keep us in there, really. I'd much rather use a builder's merchant because you can just load up once, you know, chuck it on the van and job done. But that's crazy. It's exactly the same product. If it was an inferior product, you know, I'd understand why Wix is cheaper. But it's exactly the same thing. So come on, builders merchants. I know you've got to make your profit margins, but stop screwing us up the ass. You know what I mean? I'm taking it up the ass for you guys. Right, here we are again. So the next couple of days, it's the kitchen. So this is going to be the kitchen. So I want to get this all skimmed out for them so they can start putting their kitchen in. Nice young couple with a kiddie, and I think they're living at the in-laws at the minute, so obviously they want to get in here. So the customer has already done this wall. He's a bricklayer himself, so he's obviously quite a handy fella. So he skimmed any wall which the radiator was going on. And he's not done a bad job of it at all, really. But I think it's just time. He'd probably do it all himself if he had the time, but he just hasn't got the time with a family. So I shall be. It's actually, he's done that back wall as well, which is great. So it's just these walls. So it's that wall with all the blue grit and bonding board, whatever. That back wall, and then the ceiling, which is overboarded, which is brilliant because it was a bit of a shitter, that one. So that's good. So that's me for the next couple of days. Look at that. I only cleaned his van the other day. I was just behind a road sweeping lorry as I was pulling into Wix, and these little brushes, look what I've done. Epoxy thing. Had I known that, I would have stayed well back. Now, whenever I'm on a job that's, you know, more than like a day, or it's quite a big room, I will always set a table up. If there's one thing I can't stand, is putting trowels down on windowsills and fireplaces, and everything's everywhere. So I always set a little table up. So if you're setting them up against a wall and you've got a plaster of ceiling, you can still lean over them quite nicely. I mean, I've got a spot board and a stand, but I think I cut the board at about 3 foot square, and that can just stick out a bit too far sometimes when you're trying to lean in for the ceiling. So these little fold up things are great. So I always have a little table, c'est une table, as the French would say, and le craquant, yeah. Talking of tables and things, in lockdown I did design a little thing, like a wooden, I made it out of wood, and it was like a folding sort of mobile plasterers workstation thing, which I was going to have it made out of plastic if I could ever get to that point of doing that. And I did actually take it to a painting place, like a design and painting, and they wanted £325 an hour to talk to me about it, and then, which was just, you just can't do it, can you really? And then he was explaining about if this thing went ahead and was made, the process where it would go to China, and then the moulds, metal moulds would be made, that the plastic could be printed out on them. And he said you're looking at probably over 10 grand basically to get these moulds made, and have this thing printed as a prototype, and then you got to try and sell it in Screwfix or Wix. And he said by that time, if it's any good, the Chinese will just make a cheaper, better version of it, and you'll be blown out the market really. So I did try and make something, and I did use it. I used my own one, and it worked really well. I'm not going to go into it too much, obviously, for obvious reasons, but if you look at on the internet for anything that could be classed as like a plasterer's mobile workstation, so you can just pick it up, move it to the other side of the room, and it was quite good. I thought it was. I suppose most people will laugh at it, but it's just how my head works with little things like that, trying to make life easier. So if any of you are budding inventors and you've got the cash and the time to invent something that would make a plasterer's life easier, I suppose it would work the same for a decorator really. A decorator and a plasterer, we could all do our stuff placed on the same thing that could be easily moved about and stored. That was the point of it. It could be folded up and it could be stored in the van. So it wasn't like putting a whole table in the van. It would fold up quite nicely. And you could mix up against it, and it would catch all the splashes. If I ever get into any money, I'll probably still try and do it, because there is nothing on the internet, nothing for sale anywhere that works as that, and I'd love to have something like that. I think it would make everyone's life a bit easier, so we haven't got to have trowels balanced on fireplaces, windowsills, radiators, hanging out your back pocket. You just have it all in one place.
Know what I mean? Marvellous. It really is marvellous. You are so much better than last week. You really are.
Okay, so on the existing wall, which has already been done, I'm just running a line of SBR. You can use PVA. You could even do it with enough water if you want. So I'm just running a bit of SBR along the joins there, just so when the plaster goes on, it doesn't hit that and dry instantly and then cause all aggro with dry lumps of plaster as you trail it back. So yeah, just go along there once or twice just to seal that in, and that will make your life a hell of a lot easier. Now, this ceiling is not ridiculously big, but it's quite big really, and I'm on my own. I only work on my own, so I've got to mix up on my own, do all my own labouring. The ceiling's just a bit higher than normal. It's about 3 metres high maybe, this ceiling. So although it's freshly boarded, I will still probably just give it all a coat of SBR really, for two reasons. One is that if the board's dry and dusty, then the scrim's going to want to keep falling down, so the SBR will sort that out. And also it might slow the suction down a bit for me, because I don't want to be running around like a racehorse trying to control this ceiling. So I've just sealed all that with SBR, could obviously use PVA. And it's literally taken me 5 minutes. The board is dead flat, so the roller just goes across it. And to me, that's just a peace of mind now that there's no dust on it. I've killed some suction, and the scrim will just stick to all these joints when I go on it. Now, some might say it's a bit unnecessary, you know, plasterboard's designed for skimming straight over, and it is. But I've been on jobs before in the past where the plasterboard ceiling has been up for quite a while. It's not freshly boarded ceiling, and you won't necessarily know that because it will just look new. But once they've been up for a while, when they start drawing in moisture and getting old, they can suck the death out of your plaster. They can really cause you problems. So just for peace of mind, it doesn't really cost anything. I've probably used an inch of SBR, which was laying in the bottom of that bucket. So it's not really costing you much. It's not like you're having to buy another gallon of PVA just to do it. But I just think it's good practice, and I would generally do that 9 times out of 10. Unless I'm on a tiny little bathroom ceiling or something, I won't bother. So just sticking the scrim up there now, and I can guarantee that because that's being SBR'd, that scrim will not fall down now. You know how frustrating that is when you're skimming the ceiling and you look across and the scrim is hanging down and you've got a trail and a hawk in your hand and you've got to try and deal with all that again. So that's why I just do this really, it's like for the extra 5 minutes. It's the job done. Now, not trying to sound like an old codger, but when I first started plastering, this stuff wasn't even available. Our version of scrim was a roll of Hessian cloth, which was quite thick and coarse and tough and cumbersome. So you couldn't just stick that on. You had to bed that on with you know, with your gear. You had to put a row of finish on and then bed the Hessian into the finish. And it was thicker as well, so you couldn't just skim over this, whatever this gauge is, this really sort of fine gauge. So the Hessian took some covering. So doing this sort of harks back to them old days really, of putting something on the joint before you put the scrim on. Maybe that's why I like to do it, because it's sort of belt and braces and all that like, as they say. Second coat on, laid in. That's gone alright. I've had to sort of go like clappers really. I mixed the first one up a little bit wetter than you usually would, just to sort of hold it back a bit. And then mixed the second one on, went straight on with it. Just a couple of speed skims across it all. Plastic trail across it as well. I like the plastic trail. And that's all under control now, so I'll just spend a bit of time trailing it in and polishing it. And I'll show you that bit when it's done. Oh, I'm out of breath. Right, it's the ceiling almost done. Just a nice little polish. And that's good. So again, usual old story for me. 3 metre scaffold board. Then just walk along with this is the Nella semi-flex, and I like finishing off with them. Any flex will do. I suppose you get the Rafina one. I did have a Marshalltown one which was lovely, but I just sort of wore it out because of the flexes. They're thinner at the edges, and so obviously they wear quicker. But they're great for polish. So just, yeah, bringing it all in at the edges as you do. Probably a bit of overkill really, because they're only going to stick a roller on it with a big textured emulsion. Actually, I think when you look at the back of or the spec sheet for finishing plaster, you're not meant to finish it with a nice shiny finish. You're meant to finish it with a matte finish. So all this polishing up is really just for show really. Just the customer likes to see a little bit of shine. But I think it's meant to be left as a matte, and I would imagine that's for paint to be able to sit into it and draw in, rather than if you shine it up too tight so it's like marble. The paint is just going to sit on it for longer rather than draw into it. That's my theory anyway. I'm sure I've heard that somewhere. I've just had the electricians turn up on this job. And I think they've got to put some lights in here, but I don't know. Nothing to do with me. It's a lovely easy job to plaster with no lights in it, because guaranteed it's probably going to have half a dozen spotlights in it. So hopefully they haven't got to put too many holes in this ceiling. They can do it from above. There's no flooring down upstairs, it's only floorboards. So they can come from above, I would imagine. This has turned out to be a nice ceiling. I don't really want to start repairing this. And the kitchen, so this is going to be the dining area, if you can see it, if I'm tilting my head right. This is the dining area which I'm standing in. And then where my yellow bucket is, there's some pipe coming up there. They're going to have an island there. And then the kitchen will be fitted all around that back area. So that's what I'm doing, getting the ceiling done for them so they can crack on with that. Right, I would consider that done really. I might just give it one more polish, but I don't think I need to. That's that done, and that's really all I'm going to do today, because I can't plaster any of these walls. Well, I could plaster that, but it's just a waste of time really. Because obviously all these sockets have got to be wired up, so I'm not going to start plastering walls. Well, that one's done anyway. So I'm not going to start chucking walls on where I've got to repair chases after. So that'll be me done, just a bit of prep really. That's enough for a day really. If you was just doing that as a day's job, that'd be more than enough. I've earned my dosh. It's all on a little price anyway, so I can pick it as I go. Because when I price this, generally when I price like for a whole house like this, I like to give people prices for the individual room rather than the whole job. That way they know what they're paying for, I know what I can earn. Because otherwise you could run about and I don't know, it gets a bit confusing. So I always price it as the individual room and then list it. I just find that works better for me. I've done it before where you price the whole house and then things change in the house and you end up, one particular job I did, so much changed, or you couldn't get on it, you know, for things like this, sockets, and before you know it, you're sort of working it out in your head and you're thinking, I should have been done by now, but they've changed so much and it's lost control because you forget what they've changed, what they haven't changed. And suddenly you think, I'm probably doing 2 or 3 days more than I anticipated here with the price. So yeah, I tend just to do it room by room. And then if there is, for instance, another half day's work where something's happened in the room, I can then say, that was extra, that was extra. But when you're across a whole house and you're just running around trying to keep everyone happy, I think you're generally the loser on that one. So that's my philosophy on it. Anyway, I'm going to turn you off now because you've probably had more than enough of me.